All right, hey, I wanted to make a real quick video. I saw this week on Fox News and several other places ran articles talking about how Joe Biden had stated that if he was elected president, he was going to indeed be coming after people's guns, primarily assault rifles, right? This is concerning to me for many reasons, and I understand why people, even some conservative and Republican patriots and just great people that I know, are starting to second guess whether civilians or private citizens should be allowed to have an AR-15 or a semi-automatic rifle. And I think it's important that we have this discussion because it's real easy when you see these things going down, like these mass shootings, to get tunnel vision. It's real easy to see things like this and to lose perspective and focus on what's really going on, okay? And that being said, I understand where people are coming from. AR-15s, semi-automatic rifles like this one right here, they are dangerous, okay? They're very dangerous. They were designed to be that way, all right? But to understand why many of us are so rigid and protective of the Second Amendment is because we're the ones that actually understand why we were given that right by our founding fathers. And I don't mean to sound condescending when I say that, but I want to walk you guys through so you understand it, okay? Our founders, instead of trying to keep the power themselves, which they could have done, they could have been like every other government body since history of man who decided, hey, this is kind of a good deal. We can start a new country here and we can keep all the power to ourselves. That's actually not what they did. They actually tried to give we the people, or the individual, freedom and liberty. That was their biggest concern. That was their biggest goal. And that's why one of the biggest reasons America has thrived so much. And in doing that, they gave us the Second Amendment. Now, a lot of people, if you ask them, what is the Second Amendment? You will hear a lot of people say it's all about the right to bear arms. And that is true, right? But what they often don't know or overlook is that the Second Amendment also talks about the right to maintain a well-regulated militia. And this is extremely important because if you know what the function of a militia is, it's basically like a civilian army, right? You go, you train, you do drills. And the reason they gave us the right to bear arms and to maintain a well-regulated militia was not so that we could go hunt deer together, okay? It wasn't so that we could beef up the neighborhood watch. The reason that they gave us that right was because they had just experienced a tyrannical, overreaching government to the point that they were guilty of treason just by assembling and talking about the formation of a new country, and they all knew they could be hanged for doing so, right? And their lives were all in jeopardy when they revolted, okay? And they didn't want you and I, future generations, their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren, and future generations of America to ever be in a situation where they could not defend themselves against another tyrannical government. And we all know that history tends to repeat itself. I mean, my God, if you look at what's going on today, if you look at the Democratic Party and how people like AOC and Ilhan Omar have become the mouthpiece of the Democratic Party, how you have a socialist like Bernie Sanders who basically came in the top 4 for president of the United States in 2016, and then you look back a couple years to when I was a kid, calling somebody a socialist, those were fighting words. And now we're on the brink of literally having socialist candidates and socialist campaigns and agendas being mainstream, right? And so how do you think, if that was ever to come to fruition, all-out socialism in the USA, do you think that they would just show up at your door, knock nicely, and say, hey, things are different now. We're going to take 70% of what you have? Do you think that Americans who have become accustomed to freedom are just going to say, yeah, sure, no problem. Here, take it all. Here's my car. Here's my house. Here's everything. And I'm not saying that's how it would go down, but if you don't think that socialists and people that ultimately want ultimate government control, if you think that they don't have to use force to take people's freedoms and wealth from them, private citizens, you're crazy. They do all the time. Okay, and so that leads me to the real point when we talk about the danger of attacking and diminishing the Second Amendment. And I already talked about how the AR-15 and assault weapons are dangerous, right? Let me show you what's a lot more dangerous than an AR-15. Because, and I'm going to show you this stuff because if our government was ever to become tyrannical, the whole reason for the Second Amendment, this is what you and I, the citizens, would be up against. That's an M1 Abrams tank, okay? Take a good look at it. That's one of the things you'd be fighting against. That thing can drive through your house. It can shoot you from miles and miles and miles away. It can drive over your car. If you shoot it with an AR-15, it does nothing to it. Okay, let me show you another piece of military equipment that if our government were to become tyrannical, you'd be fighting against. This is an Apache helicopter, okay? This too can shoot you from miles and miles away with missiles and you would never even see or hear it, all right? It can fly all around. Very, very dangerous piece of government hardware right there. How about this? How about this? This is an aircraft carrier. We have several of them. There's enough firepower on an aircraft carrier to put a hurting on a small city, okay? And I show you guys this because nobody ever wants to run the scenario out to what our founders were trying to protect us from. If our government was ever to become tyrannical and overreach and try and wrestle freedom away from its citizens, which I can totally see happening. Just since I was a boy, I've seen more freedoms taken away than we've been given. That's what you would be up against. And this AR-15, this assault rifle, whatever you want to call it, semi-automatic rifle, that would be literally your only prayer at saving yourself and your family. Okay, so next time you hear people talking about this, this is a way to think about it. Yeah. Is freedom dangerous? You bet your ass it's dangerous. It has always been dangerous because you have to factor in free will and you have to factor in the evil nature of man and the greed of man. But I'll tell you this, the dangerous freedom that we have now is a lot better and it's a lot safer than if we give up those rights and freedoms to absolute power, because absolute power corrupts absolutely. Never forget that. If we give up our rights and our freedoms here and the ability to resist and to fight back, we will be in a world of hurt. I want you guys to understand how serious it would be if there was another civil war in this country, free men and women against a tyrannical government with the firepower in our military hell-bent on wresting our freedoms and our liberties from the citizens. Even with AR-15s, we would be extremely outgunned, and we would be at a severe disadvantage. So remember that, guys. Remember. I hope this made a little sense to you guys. I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I'm just telling you to walk the scenario out. Keep in mind what our founders had in mind when they gave us the right. They wanted us to be able to protect ourselves against a tyrannical government. If our government now, with the firepower that it has, and I just showed you only 3 pieces of military hardware, there's thousands of them. If they were to turn those guns on us, these assault rifles, that would be the only savior, you guys, that we would have, period. We would end up becoming the guerrillas, all right? All right, guys. those are my thoughts on the liberal left trying to take away our firearms. I know where you guys are at. I hate seeing morons and just people that let themselves get overcome by evil go in and do these horrendous acts. But I think that we're going to put ourselves in a much worse position if we surrender these types of firearms.